Uh, Go ahead. All right. Good afternoon. I'm Dwayne Scoggins, uh, your weekly host.
Woohoo!
With our time of holy conversations.
Amen.
I serve as pastor at Johnston Chapel United Methodist Church in Summit, Mississippi. Been in the ministry for about 8 years now. And have been
Amen.
here a little over a year. It's been a great time to be here and everything. But we couldn't do this without another Methodist pastor.
You could. You'd have to come up with more to say yourself.
It wouldn't be no fun. It wouldn't be no fun.
It would be half
a
of
conversation.
fun. Yeah. Morgan Spencer. Let's see. I've been pastoring for 7 years now, 2 different charges. I'm living here in Pope, Mississippi, pastor 2 churches within 10 to 12 minutes of the house. Some great rural congregations. You and I haven't talked about this, but I've stopped calling them small congregations. I don't like that.
Nope.
Using words like big and small kind of leads to some bad types of thinking. Like big is good and small is bad, and I feel like that's wrong. We should not do that. They're country churches, and that's what characterizes the folks that come. Just some real godly, fun folk. Yeah. And so, been here a while.
You could almost call them family churches, but I mean,
they are. Yes, absolutely, no question about it. Yeah, and a lot of rural churches are like that. Like they're strong, deep family connections. Usually, in a matriarch and a patriarch, and then the family on down, and then who they marry. Hopefully, they don't marry in the family. They seek spouse. I'm gonna get in trouble for that one.
You'll pay for that one.
Vicky's from Arkansas. I tease her all the time. She doesn't find it as funny as I do, so it's fine.
No, of course not.
But there are a lot of churches like that where the larger the church gets, the less of those deep family connections you have, just because not everybody's related. Like, how would you characterize your church?
My church is a rural church, and it is. I would definitely say it's a family church. I mean, we have a few that are outside of the family, but on the whole, it is a family type church.
Neat.
And the interesting thing is too, though, if you talk to people like where we live at in these medium to small communities, for lack of a better way of putting it, a lot of times they'll tell you that they don't like the big churches where there's 1,200 people or so, because they don't have that connection.
Yep, I hear that all the time.
And to be honest, I don't know how I would like pastoring that type of a church, because I am a hands-on pastor. And if I've got 1,200 people, there is no way I could pastor all of those people.
Well, you pastor in very much a different style and a different way. You can't be hands-on with 2,000 people. You've got other staff and other people who work there at the church, and you kind of allow them to operate in their ministry, and then you get snippets in staff meetings of different things that are going on, and that it's always good to hear about, and then you have some passion projects of your own that allow you to connect personally with some of the folk. But it's very different, that's for sure. It's very different. Yeah. I mean, the largest church I've ever been a part of, we averaged 150 people on Sunday morning. I mean, that's the biggest church I've ever been to.
Right.
On a weekly basis.
Right.
And so
Right.
that'd be a whole nother world being in a church with 1,000 people. That'd be like going to the moon. And so,
Well, I mean, that's just like coming here, though. I mean, I went from 2 churches where they were extremely rural, extremely family, with average attendance at one church about 30, and the attendance at the other church 10.
Yep.
To this church with 2 worship services, with one worship service having about 30 people, and the other worship service having anywhere from 40 to 50 people. You know, I mean, that changed on how I pastor that group of people.
I bet.
You know, because you have to have that I have learned you have to have those contacts out there to keep you informed, because you can't keep up with everybody.
Absolutely. You know? Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. And and in the different ministries that we've been a part of, one of the question that floated in my brain today for us to talk about, I hope those of you who are watching this on Facebook, when I put it out there, you can go back and find what I'm talking about. But one of our ministry friends, a pastor friend of ours, is doing a camp meeting setting this week where they're having different revival services. And I'll be honest with you, Dwayne, I didn't tell you this, but I'll tell you now. I have met a bunch of preachers who don't think revival is important anymore. Having a designated week, 1 week of the year revival service week, or even half a week, or even 2 nights. Because a lot of folks don't think that's important. Do we still need to be doing revivals?
I think so. I am definitely a revival believing preacher. Because I mean,
I was fixing to say, why?
Now, when when I say that, in the old days, when I was a kid coming up, you had revival and people came and people got saved, and all of that was good.
Mm-hmm.
Today we don't have that much of people just coming to revival, but we live in a much busier time than what we lived back then.
We do.
And there's a lot of other things that can distract you than there is today. But on the other side of that, living today, I think revival is good for us because it allows for our congregations to come and get renewed and refreshed for life, and for being disciples of Christ.
So you're hitting on a bunch of things that I think are great. You know, the history of revival, the Methodist Church that exists today came out of a revival spirit in the 1700s in Bristol, and a lot of different revivals were present in that time period that Wesley came and was a part of, and Whitfield and a whole bunch of other preachers who were involved with a lot of those revivals in that time. And then in America especially, there's this long-standing history of revivals during the 1800s, as well as the Second Great Awakening was spawning, and you've got a lot of great preachers in there going around to a lot of these rural towns, and everybody would come out, and that experience you were talking about as a child, seeing people come and get saved. And it is definitely my experience in the last several years with revival that it's not as much about people coming to hear of the Lord for the first time. That revival in the modern context is for our church to refocus itself on what matters. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We lose our way
does.
too.
Yeah.
We lose our fire. We lose our spirit. We stumble and fall, and we need to redevote ourselves to those things that matter.
We do. We certainly do.
I'm out of tea, by the way. Not that anybody cares.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I know.
But yeah, I mean, it is that. Well, we had a revival 1st of September, and one of my church members there said, we keep calling this revival. He said we ought to be calling this refreshment, because this is us getting refreshed. And I was like,
sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Go push, Siri. Now Siri wants in on the conversation, but it was. But I mean, that's for a lot of us. That's what it is refreshment and revival.
Yeah.
And let's just be honest. For some people, it's also nostalgia, because you go back to remembering when you were a kid, the old songs that you used to sing, the old camp meeting songs and things like that. And I mean, but again,
I don't know about you, but we actually sing out of a different hymn book during revival than we do during normal worship. Do you have a different hymn book that you use sometimes during revival? Because we do.
Yeah, we do. And I tried to this year. I was hoping that we had some old Cokesberries around here somewhere, but we didn't have any here at the church. But
yeah,
I know a lot of folks like singing out of the old Cokesberries.
Oh, they love. Man, we had a member donate money to buy some new Cokesbury hymnals in the church, and they are, that new hymnal feel when you open them up and they got the new pages. Oh yeah. So,
yep.
Yeah. It does. I do think we need to not forget the ways in which some of our faith was formed and shaped, like revival. Like, I get it. We're all busy. We've got sports for our kids. We've got everything in life pulling us different directions. And in the midst of that, I don't think it's a terrible idea to try to set aside 1 week that says, you know what? No, I'm not doing all that other stuff. From 6 to 7:30, we're going to be at church every night.
Yeah.
Because this week, I want to remind myself what needs to be the most important things in my life. And you bring in different preachers to speak that night, or you bring in one speaker to do this really long form message that lasts for several different nights. Whichever way, it's all good. Yeah. I had one preacher come in one night, Wayne. We started at 6. He started preaching at 6:30. And I promise you, at 7:20, I'm looking at the clock like, dude, I love you, but we got to go. He had been preaching for almost an hour. And I was like, whoo, that is a sermon right there, man. That is a sermon. I have been to revival. You do a lot of special music. I do like that. I like it.
I do too.
I went years ago when I was a youth minister in a charismatic church. We took the kids to a youth revival in Tennessee, and it was amazing. I still remember I still have very fond memories of that week of worship and preaching, and it was awesome. Awesome. So
Well, it's like, all right, Jonathan's camp meeting that's going on. And they do one not far from where I'm at called Felder's. They do a camp meeting at Felder's as well. But, I mean, when we're talking camp meeting, there are people that are actually camped out there.
yeah,
They're there.
yeah,
Andy Stoddard, he's preaching the camp meeting.
yep,
And he's preaching twice a day.
yep.
He
Yep.
preaches at 10 in the morning and then at night. I mean, you know, but that's the way it used to be.
Yeah.
You know. And I think that if we could bring that spirit back to our churches and to our preachers and to our preachers.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, really, if a church is going to have a revival, it's the preacher's decision on whether or not they're going to have it or not.
Yeah.
You know, and so, I mean, you know, whenever I get to a church, one of the first things I'm asking is, when is revival? And if they say, well, we ain't had one in 15 years.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We're gonna have one this year. But no,
And then
Johnston Chapel here,
you usually have that homecoming service too on Sunday morning.
right.
And that's
Exactly.
a huge deal. Huge deal. I had no idea how big a deal that was. Diamond.
Homecoming's big.
I bought a rotisserie chicken, and every time my dog walks around the kitchen, she is just looking at the carcass up on the counter like, yeah. You know, we
I know that.
we should absolutely find ways which focus us deeper on our relationship with God. And revival does do that for some people. And when you don't have it, they miss it. They miss it big time.
Yeah. They sure do.
We didn't get to have ours this year because of COVID, and I missed it. I missed it.
Yeah. But now I'm going to tell you, I was nervous about us having ours because of the COVID.
Yeah.
You know, it's we're in a different world, and
we are.
It takes some thinking about what we used to just say, okay, let's do it. Now we reach the point where we gotta say, okay, we're going to do it, but how?
Yeah,
you know?
Got to be a little creative nowadays.
Yeah,
got to be a little creative for sure.
But I mean, it still doesn't change. You know, doesn't change that revival is, I think, needed for a church.
Absolutely.
You know.
Sorry, she just had to go bark at the air outside.
No problem.
Go bark at nothing. I love her. I love that dog.
But yeah, you know, I mean, I watched Andy and them a couple of times, and I think we need it, and I really wished I could convince folks to go back to the week-long service. You know, now we're doing, our revival started on Sunday night and went until Wednesday night. But like I say, I remember
by that Wednesday are tired. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Unless you've got different speakers lined up for each night. That way they don't have to hear the same preacher all week long.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Amen.
But, you know, I mean, you talk about, you know, we set that 1 week aside for just for revival. And you know, I don't know if it was different back then or not, but it seemed like that even the town around the church understood the activities that were going on, and there was usually not much going on that week that a church was having revival.
One of the ways in which life has changed, community life has changed. Like I can't imagine now businesses 1 week out of the year closing earlier to help benefit the church. Like I can't imagine that happening anymore. And for different size churches and different places and contexts, we've got to all come up with creative ways in which we all need revival. And so how do you do it to get to revive your people and to revive yourself? Like I need revival.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody knows
me
this.
too.
If you've watched this video long enough, I don't know if you know this, but preachers are people.
That's right. And we like to go to worship service too, and not be the part of it. We just like to go and worship,
And so I hope this discussion finds everybody in a different place, and hopefully we can pray about doing revival and finding ways in which we can be revived. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. It's always good to see you, preacher.
You too.
Y'all have a good week. We'll talk at you later.
Have a blessed week, everybody. Thanks for watching.